Every NFL starting quarterback has something to prove. So in this video, I'm going to go through every projected starting NFL quarterback for the 2024 season and grade on a scale of 1 to 10 how much I think they have left to prove in terms of individual accolades and team accolades as well. If you're a fan of a quarterback and you don't like my ranking for them, well, then that's too bad. Tell your quarterback to get his numbers up, baby. Anyway, the video begins right after this. Before I begin, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Factor. Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. Their team of gourmet chefs create each meal using only ingredients with integrity to help you feel your best all day long. Eat stress-free this summer with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. Also, discover more than 60 add-ons every week, like breakfast, on-the-go lunch, snacks, and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. So what are you waiting for? Get started today and fuel up for your springtime goals. When things get hectic, Factor is flexible. Change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. I've said it in all the other ads that I've done for Factor, and it's 1000% true. They are the real deal. They have my complete and total endorsement, so if you're on the fence about it, you shouldn't be. They are legit. So head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code BARRY50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code BARRY50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. We start off with the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray. Now, Kyler Murray's 2023 season was a half season or so because he was coming off of his torn leg from the 2022 season, which doesn't have anything to do with his small stature for a quarterback, which is what people have been afraid for him for many years because of his injury concerns, because of his lack of size, and that still is a concern. A bigger concern, though, is that when he's been on the field, he has not lived up to the first overall pick status in terms of numbers or winning. Now, he's been decent. He hasn't been a flat-out bust, but he has been underwhelming in that sense, in my opinion. Unless he sees massive improvement or he has a massive jump, I have to wonder how much longer the Cardinals are going to ride with him as their starting quarterback. They certainly are paying him enough money to be the starting quarterback for many, many years. But as we all know in pro sports, especially high-level pro sports, very rarely do super high money contracts get fulfilled to the very end, especially in a violent sport like football. So my prove-it rating for Kyler Murray is at a 9.5 out of 10. Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins. We all know the deal with Kirk by now. He is seemingly cursed to always have great stats and mediocre team success. And much like Kyler, his 2023 season was a partial season because he tore his Achilles. But we all know Kirk Cousins has never been reliant on his athleticism, so I don't really know how much the torn Achilles will lead to a change in his production. I don't think it will. He plays a more cerebral game. He's in the pocket a lot, so I don't really think it's going to be a big deal. You would think that he would have his job secured for this year, considering what Atlanta did to get him, but then Atlanta turns right around and they draft another quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., 8th overall. So that kind of means that the clock is ticking on Cousins before he's ever taken a snap for the Falcons. They obviously must have some concerns about his Achilles, at least more than other people do. And for as good as Kirk Cousins is, he's never been a quarterback that you're afraid of your team playing against. And that might be, maybe it's because it's defenses, or there's certain guys that just have bad luck and you just know there's something that's going to happen to help them lose. And Kirk just seems to be one of those guys. So he has a bunch of stats. His career stats are great. Really, he's statistically one of the best quarterbacks of all time, which sounds crazy until you actually look at the numbers. Individually, he has a very, very respectable career, but he has one playoff win. So his prove-it rating still remains a pretty high 8 out of 10. Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson. Does anybody outside of Ravens fans even really care that he's won 2 MVPs? It really doesn't seem like that. Like if you said to somebody, hey, did you know that Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes had the same amount of league MVPs? It would be kind of like, really? Wow. And that's because, well, there's different reasons why, but the biggest reason is because of the difference in the postseason play, but I'll get to that later. He really won the most meh MVP award ever last season, and that was because last season there wasn't a lot of great quarterback play. There was quarterback injuries and really just a whole mixture of things. Still had a great season, but his MVP season, it wasn't anything special, especially compared to previous MVP seasons from quarterbacks. We all know that he's the greatest runner ever played the quarterback position, and a lot of people use that as a diss to try and insult him, say, oh, he's a running quarterback. Well, he's still the best running quarterback I've ever seen, and there is still value in that. And it's also successful. It also works. It has worked in the regular season to an extremely high degree. The Ravens, every year Lamar has been healthy, have been unbelievably successful and gotten a bunch of high seeds in the playoffs. But that's where the other shoe drops with Lamar, is that he's one of the worst playoff performers among Hall of Fame quarterbacks, or quarterbacks who will be or most likely will be in the Hall of Fame. I think that Lamar, obviously, if he stays healthy and plays another 10 years or so, he is going to be in the Hall of Fame. 2 MVPs and whatever. I mean, that's pretty Hall of Fame likely. And no matter what happens, his critics will always be around as long as he continues to crap his pants in the playoffs. And last year, he had a golden opportunity really to silence his critics, had the AFC Championship game at home versus the Chiefs. Defense only gave up 17 points. He couldn't get it done. So again, from individual standpoint, he's accomplished basically everything you can as an individual player. He wins a lot of regular season games, but his playoff career has left so much to be desired, which is why his prove it rating is a 5 out of 10. Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen. We all know about the turnovers and everything like that, and in that sense, he's kind of like the new age Brett Favre, where he's exciting to watch because you never really know what to expect, but he's still going to produce 40 or 45 touchdowns every season, which is ultra rare and not easy to do. All things considered, he's probably the second best quarterback in the NFL right now, behind the guy in Kansas City. His playoff numbers for his career are really great, although I do believe that they are inflated a bit by his amazing, historically dominant 2-game run in 2021, which is really, I think, where most of his playoff reputation has come from when he lost to Kansas City because of his defense. Outside of 2021, his playoff numbers are okay, not great. He is now 0-3 against Mahomes in the postseason. Now, if you want to talk about ranking quarterbacks head-to-head record-wise, I understand, especially in football, it's not an exact science, but still, Allen appears destined to be playing the role of Vegeta to Mahomes' Goku. His prove-it rating, he's at a 4.5 out of 10 for me. Carolina Panthers, booster seat Bryce. I don't really have anything good to say about Bryce Young. He had one of the worst rookie seasons ever by a quarterback. He was just as horrible as I expected that he would be. He has no elite physical traits, and he does nothing particularly well, especially when you're talking about a guy who was picked first overall. His supporters are obviously going to blame his supporting cast, but many quarterbacks have done better with worse, and I have zero confidence in him ever becoming a good NFL quarterback, as he's only getting a second year as a starter because of his draft position. His prove it rating is a 15 out of 10. Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is an ultra talented rookie, unbelievably fun to watch. He has the potential to be a top 2 or 3 quarterback if he stays healthy for many years to come, which is something that I never thought I would say about somebody who is employed by the Chicago Bears. If he stays healthy and reaches his potential, he could end up as a top 10 quarterback of all time. Obviously, a little bit down the road, but I stand by that. As far as first overall picks are concerned, he steps into a pretty good situation around him offensively. They got Keenan Allen. They drafted guys for him. So it's not like the cup is bare the way you see for a lot of other first overall picks. My only on-field concern when I watch him play is that he will hold the ball too long sometimes to make the highlight play, which is a trait of other guys like Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. And Rodgers is a guy who I think Williams most plays like. And that was also Rodgers' biggest weakness throughout his career, taking sacks, things like that. That's one thing that he will have to clean up in the NFL, and really, in my opinion, will be what decides whether or not he does reach his potential. His prove it rating, just based by default because he's a rookie, is at a 10 out of 10. Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow. Burrow has played 4 years in the NFL at this point, and half of his seasons have ended on IR with major injury, so there's that. He has some bad games and bad stretches of play, and particularly to start last year, and it was largely ignored, and I think a lot of that was because of the certain Joe Cool media image and media persona that he has. You know, he looks like a guy from a boy band, and he wears all the shades and the sunglasses and shit, and everyone's like, oh, he's so cool. He's extremely overrated as a clutch performer and a playoff performer. He's really living off of that Super Bowl run from a couple years ago, where he really wasn't even that good. He just was lucky, and his defense and opponents gave him short fields, and he settled for field goals, and the red zone offense was terrible, and he had multiple chances to win Super Bowl 56, and he couldn't get it done. He has everything around him that he needs to win MVP and a Super Bowl. He had it in 2021 and in 2022. I know his offensive line wasn't great, but he still had it, and golden opportunities to win rings in both those years, and particularly get to the Super Bowl both those years, but he couldn't get it done or live up to his reputation. His prove it rating is at a 4.5 out of 10 for me. Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Cosby. Forget about all the off-field shit. Is he even good on the field anymore? It's been over 3 years since his last good NFL season. The last time Deshaun Watson was a good NFL quarterback, objectively, was in 2020. We're going on almost half a decade of him either not playing or being dog shit. At this point in time, it looks as though, based on his on-field production, the baggage, and the terrible image he brings to the team off the field, the injuries, all of that shit, it appears as though he might have the worst contract in sports history, all things considered. His prove it rating is a 10 out of 10, and I look forward to seeing him in hell. Denver Broncos, Bo Nix. Bo Nix might be the first rookie quarterback in NFL history that's actually a 10-year veteran. He's the most veteran rookie quarterback possible after he spent 10 years in college, between Auburn and Oregon. He's a sneaky athlete, wink. Guy who'll surprise you. He will make some highlight plays. When I watch him on film, doesn't really have any jaw-dropping traits. Like he's a guy kind of like he has good arm, good athlete, like, but he's not an athletic freak. His head coach is Sean Payton, so you can expect to see a lot of checkdowns, folks, from Bo Nix as a rookie. Again, by default, as a rookie, his prover rating is a 10 out of 10. I have my doubts, but I think he'll look a little bit better than some people expect because Sean Payton has an ability to make quarterbacks look better than they really are. Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott. Well, here we go again. It's year 9 of the Dak Prescott experiment. We know the deal by now. This isn't really difficult. He's great against bad teams, and he's mediocre against good teams. He cannot be trusted in big games. We saw that once again last year in the playoffs versus Green Bay. I don't know how many fucking times I have to say it. I said it all year, and it was, oh, you're just a hater. You're just a fucking Eagles fan. And look what happened. They got the shit kicked out of him. He's a stat patter, another guy. He's a good quarterback, okay? He's a good quarterback, but he's going to end his career in the Tony Romo, Kirk Cousins, Phillip Rivers tier of losers with good stats. So despite the fact that he has a bunch of numbers and stuff, maybe I'm just being a little bit too harsh on him here. I don't really care. His prover rating's a 9.5 out of 10. Been a starting quarterback now going on 8 years, and he has, 2 playoff wins, never made a conference championship game. I mean, give me a fucking break. Seriously. Detroit Lions, Jared Goff. One of the weirdest careers I've ever seen. A guy who it seems like his reputation is fluid, where there's some seasons where people think he's good, there are other seasons where people think he sucks. Right now, we are in one of the peaks where everyone thinks, oh, Jared Goff's actually good because he's had 2 straight good years, took the Lions to a conference championship game last year, had an up and down career, finally found a home in Detroit though. He seems to have beaten the Sean McVay merchant allegations. And again, I think it's weird that a guy, he was a first overall pick, he was 1 game from taking 2 different teams to the Super Bowl, kind of just flies under the radar. Doesn't play with a lot of flash, he's not a very exciting quarterback to watch, and is still prone to bad stretches of play, but he's now a legit good quarterback, and I think he is one more great season away from being put back in the elite category, to be honest with you. That's why my prove it rating for him is a 7.5 out of 10, and 7.5 is still much higher than the 3 points he fucking put up in Super Bowl 53 to bail out Tom Brady, goddammit. Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love. You know what the opposite of Jordan Love is? LeBron hate. Yeah, there you go. He started 2023, his first year as a full starter, replacing Aaron Rodgers, as an interception merchant looking a lot like the bad version of Brett Favre, which he plays a lot more like if you can watch him play than he does Aaron Rodgers. He has good tools, but to me, he's a guy, he has like a good arm and stuff, but he plays like he has a super rocket arm. He plays like he has a bigger arm than he actually does, which gets him in trouble sometimes. It also was a big reason why he had that game-losing interception versus the 49ers in the playoffs last year. I think it was on a cross-field throw. You know, you can't do that. I think he looks like he's a good quarterback to throw over 30 touchdown passes, even in today's era, is still good, and he is on track to becoming the New York Jets starting quarterback around 2037, as is Packers tradition now. His prove it rating, I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. Houston Texans, CJ Stroud. He was one of the best rookie quarterbacks of all time and was really one of the few good stories in terms of quarterbacks from the 2023 season that wasn't everyone was injured or people were retired or whatever, but Stroud was a massive surprise, and he was a pleasant surprise really for everybody unless you're an AFC South rival. He proved all the doubters wrong like me and easily should have been the first overall pick in 2023. I know Carolina is greatly regretting that pick right now, no matter what any of their fans say. He doesn't have the super freak tools of a guy like an Anthony Richardson and a Josh Allen, but you can just tell he's one of those guys. He has a feel for the game. He can move around in the pocket. He's able to make and diagnose plays and reads and throw the ball on time. He's just good, man. Should be in contention for championships and individual awards every year for the foreseeable future. His prove it rating is an 8.5 out of 10, which is not bad for a guy who's only entering his second season. Indianapolis Colts, Big Tony Anthony Richardson. When I talk about 2023 being a bad year for quarterbacks, he was part of the reason why, because him getting injured early on, he was going to be one of the most exciting rookie quarterbacks to watch. He got injured early, and we got stuck with watching Gardner Minshew. He still doesn't have a big enough sample size to really draw any conclusions, but again, the physical talent, the arm strength, the running ability, everything. I talk about how other guys don't have the tools. This guy has every tool you could want physically. Like other dual threat quarterbacks, the question is whether his running mentality, taking on defenders, his physicality will lead to a shorter career like it did with Cam Newton. To me, he has a higher ceiling than any quarterback not named Mahomes in the NFL. His prove it rating remains a 10 out of 10, but I think and I hope that that number will be lower in short order. Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence. I feel like I've been saying this for the last year or two. When is the dominant season going to come? Still waiting for that dominant breakout season. Again, this was a guy that many teams for years ahead of time were talking about, hey, you got to tank for this dude back when he was at Clemson. And And when you talk about a guy like that, to me, you better be a dominant quarterback in the NFL. And simply put, Lawrence hasn't been that, at least yet. Like I said, he's been overhyped his entire career. And honestly, even watching him in college, I thought he was a little bit overhyped. Again, relative to the hype. I'm not saying that he can't be a good quarterback. I'm not saying that he wasn't a great college quarterback. But the hype has always seemed to be a little bit more than the actual substance with him. The one thing I do like about Lawrence is that throws a lot of passes deep, throws a lot of balls in the double coverage. He doesn't play quarterback like a pussy. So I can respect that about him. But even for me, as a guy who hates checkdowns, every now and then I don't mind a quarterback checking down. So I think sometimes Lawrence actually needs to learn it's okay to throw the ball short every now and then instead of going for the home run on every play. And CJ Stroud's emergence means that the AFC South will not be as easy for the Jaguars as many once thought after 2022 when they won the division and they won a playoff game and they went to Kansas City. They almost made the conference championship game. And everyone said, oh, the AFC South is going to be the Jaguars division for years to come because the Texans suck and blah, blah, blah. Well, CJ Stroud said no, that's changing. And plus, we still don't know how Anthony Richardson's going to turn out. But if he hits, that's another guy. So Jaguars and their fans probably a little bit upset right now. Anyway, Lawrence's prove it rating, 9 out of 10. Kansas City Chiefs, hat-trick Mahomes. I mean, what is there to say about Mahomes? You can see in the picture his accolades. He's not even 29 years old yet. I mean, the dude is arguably, just accolades-wise, top 3 quarterback ever, and that's not even including the eye test. He's super clutch. He has everything you could want. So, I mean, he's the best quarterback of all time that I've ever seen. The only way to stop him is for his teammates to drop his passes, which was the case for most of the regular season last year, which is why the Chiefs had a mediocre regular season record. The one thing to notice is how many MVPs can he win as his supporting cast declines around him, because last year lost and all, he did win the Super Bowl MVP. That's all great. Last year was by far his worst year of his career statistically in the regular season. I want to see him bounce back and have more of those MVP type numbers that he had earlier in his career. He is the main character of the NFL, and you can never forget that. Similar to when Brady was playing, when Peyton was playing, there's always a main character. He is the main character. His prove it rating, 0 out of 10. Las Vegas Raiders, undecided. At this point, the starting quarterback position battle is between Poop and P with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. Now, Aiden O'Connell, he had a whatever rookie season. He wasn't like historically bad or anything, but he just was meh. I wasn't particularly impressed by him. I don't think he's anything special. He has a 10 out of 10 prove it rating going into his second year. And the other option is Gardner Minshew III. He's a great backup quarterback, but the thing about Minshew is that the longer that he's starting for your team at quarterback, the worse off you are. He is basically the example of diminishing returns in quarterback form. And I mean, I don't know. I guess his prove it rating is a fucking 8.5 out of 10. I have no idea. I mean, he hasn't won anything. His stats are okay. I mean, he's not a terrible quarterback. I would think that, you sign him free agency, you pay him a decent amount of money, that you would put him as a starter. But what do I know, right? Los Angeles Chargers, Justin Herbert. We're going into Herbert's 5th season now, and I'm not sure if he's any better than he was when he entered the league in 2020. And as we've been saying for years, we all know that physically he has the tools, he has the arm talent to be elite, to really be one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in the league. That's never been a question with him. The question is, and this was inevitable once he got drafted by the Chargers, is that when you play for the Chargers, you're going to be in a lot of close games, and there's going to be a lot of bullshit that happens that causes you to lose games. So are the crunch time failings that Herbert has had, which has led to some mediocre records, some bad records, despite some decent numbers, are those his fault, or is it the Chargers? I still think it's too early in his career. Like with Phillip Rivers, we knew after a decade plus of him crapping his pants in the clutch, we knew that he just wasn't the guy. But with Herbert, he's had some bad luck in terms of his defense giving up leads late in games, things like that. But at the same time, he also has had some bad moments in the clutch. So it's too early to tell there. But at the end of the day, it's time to start winning some playoff games. It's time to start making the playoffs. Only making the playoffs one time in your first 4 seasons and then blowing a 27-point lead in that one playoff game. Yeah, I mean, for a guy as talented as he is, should be better. His prove it rating, to me, 8 out of 10. Los Angeles Rams, Kelly Stafford's husband. Again, with Matthew Stafford, he's got a ring. He's got a bunch of volume stats, 300 plus touchdown passes, whatever, 50,000 plus yards. Like, he's got a bunch of, so it seems like he's got everything. The only question left is whether or not he will get enough counting stats to make the Hall of Fame. I wouldn't vote for him, but it might be a discussion. Even now, in his mid-30s, he still has one of the best arms in the league. But he's just one of those guys where, he's every year he's going to have at least a couple games where he still looks like a rookie for no reason. And you just kind of say, well, what the fuck? This guy goes from looking like the best quarterback in the league one week to looking like dog shit the next week. That's how Stafford's always been. That's just who he is. And he is a better husband than most people are. So that gives him bonus points. His prove it rating, I have him as a 5 out of 10. Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa. After a second straight highly productive season, he has proven that he is not the draft bust that many people thought he was after his first 2 mediocre seasons. But But, and there is a huge but in there, no offense to Sir Mix-a-Lot, despite his great numbers the last 2 years, there is the feeling that Miami could do even better at the quarterback position, largely because Tua is not a very physically gifted quarterback. He doesn't have a big arm, he's short, and he's surrounded by a bunch of physically gifted skill players. Again, people always talk about, well, if you put Herbert on the Dolphins, they would be unstoppable, or if you put a number of any other more physically gifted quarterbacks on the Dolphins, they'd be even better than they were. And Mike McDaniel gets a lot of credit for Tua's success. Every year, I shouldn't say every year, but for the last couple years with Mike McDaniel there, he's had a few huge games, like there was the 70-point game last year versus Denver, and really nice numbers, but critics won't stop until it translates to a deep playoff run. He's going through the same exact shit that Goff went through with Vay. It's something that Alex Smith really dealt with for his entire career, really, because he was replaced twice, where he puts up good numbers, but the feeling is, we could do better than this. And it's also something that Brock Purdy's going through right now, where every good thing you do gets credited to your coach and not you, and every bad thing you do is because of you. So it kind of sucks, but at the same time, I would say his prove it rating is an 8 out of 10. Minnesota Vikings, J.J. McCarthy. He has a good arm, some good physical tools, but he was a game manager in college. He was on a loaded Michigan team with Harbaugh, and I can't really think of a lot of game managers in recent history that were game managers in college and ended up becoming elite NFL quarterbacks. He looks like he eats his own boogers, which really isn't an analysis of him as a quarterback, but I just wanted to put it there anyway. When I watched him, and I'm not going to pretend to be some college draft nerd or some draft expert, but, you know, I saw Michigan play because they're on TV a lot. I was never particularly like, wow, J.J. McCarthy, this dude's fucking incredible. You got to draft him. I never ever felt that way, particularly watching him in the college football playoffs. So his prove it rating is 10 out of 10, and I have my doubts. New England Patriots, Drake May. He's a tall, white quarterback with a rocket arm. I am stunned that he went in the first round. Finally, after pulling the plug on the Mac Jones era and the Bill Belichick era, the Patriots are in full rebuild mode. And it's a conundrum, though, because Patriots, they don't have good supporting cast. Supporting cast, especially the skill positions, it's fucking terrible. And at the same time, I still think that Drake May should do better than Mac Jones and Bailey Zapp or whatever the hell the Patriots were trotting out their quarterback for last year, and really the last year and a half or so. So I do expect some flashes of brilliance. I do expect him to make some plays, but I don't think he's going to be very successful, and the Patriots won't be very successful because unlike from 2001 to 2019, the AFC East is actually good now. So his prove rating, again, 10 out of 10 by default. New Orleans Saints, Derek Carr. I said this about Kirk Cousins before, but now I'm kind of moving it over to Derek Carr. He is either the best bad quarterback in NFL history, or he's the worst good quarterback in NFL history. You can take your pick. Either way comes with some baggage, because he's always going to find a way, tease you and give you hope, and then he's gonna fuck you right at the end of the day, and you're gonna end up being 8-9 or 9-8, and you're gonna miss the playoffs, and you're gonna say, what the hell was that? And you look at Derek Carr's numbers for the final numbers of the season, and you're like, hey, it wasn't his fault, but hey, that's how you know somebody wasn't watching game by game. He has as much arm talent as anybody, but there's just something missing, and there always kind of has been ever since his injury in 2016. I think he's basically a worse version of Kirk Cousins. So he's got good numbers. He still has not won a playoff game. He's been in the league for, this is going to be his 11th season as a starter. Still has not won a playoff game. So his prove it rating for me, despite decent career numbers, is at a high 9.5 out of 10. New York Giants, Daniel Jones. He's fucking terrible. His prove it rating, 10 out of 10. Moving on. New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers. Well, all of that preseason hype for the Jets last season, hard knocks, etc., that all went out the window very, very quickly. 4 snaps. What was it? 4 snaps that he played all year long last year? So that's obviously concerning. He's 40 years old. He hasn't produced a good season since 2021 when he won the MVP. 2022, his last year with Green Bay, he wasn't that good. Obviously, last year, he tore his Achilles. So what are we expecting out of Aaron Rodgers? He still has some good skill position players, but this isn't the same guy that was the greatest arm talent the league's ever seen when he was younger in his prime. He is a top 5 to 7 quarterback ever. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. We all know this, but is he still that dude that he was? Packers, you know, and I think anybody expecting him to be MVP Rodgers or 2011 Rodgers is, yeah, you're in for a bad surprise. And I'll just say this, Patrick Mahomes has swooped in and had the career that we all thought Rodgers was going to have. We all thought Rodgers was going to be the guy to challenge Brady and Montana in that GOAT conversation. And he had his opportunities, but he couldn't get it done. Mahomes is now getting it done. But overall, career-wise, as one of the best quarterbacks ever, despite a pretty light Super Bowl ring count, Aaron Rodgers' prove it rating, I'm going to put him at a 3 out of 10. Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts. It still bothers me as an Eagles fan that, in my opinion, the best game Jalen Hurts played, despite the fumble, was Super Bowl 57, where he put up 35 points and they fucking lost. But, you know, that's life. There's a lot of things that are bad. He's got to deal with it. I mean, the fact that I'm still standing and making these videos really shows how much of a hero I am. But anyway, a lot of people expected his numbers to drop off from his 2022 season in 2023, and they did, but he still had a productive year. My question is, how much of his drop in in numbers was because of him or because of the terrible play calling, which, as somebody who watched every Eagles game and every Eagles play calling, which is fucking terrible. And just, it's obvious he moves way slower as a runner and a scrambler than he did his first couple seasons. I don't know whether he's doing it to try and protect himself or to try and be more careful. I don't know, but he's a lot slower. He runs a lot slower. However, that has not stopped him from being unstoppable on the tush push to the point where people are bitching, complaining about it, needing to be banned. Guess what? It's still around, not banned, so suck it. I still believe he is franchise quarterback for the Eagles, but his biggest flaw, if you want him to be objective, he's a good quarterback. He's not this terrible quarterback that a lot of the haters say he is. His biggest flaw is that he'll leave the pocket too early. He'll leave clean pockets and try to scramble, and as long as he has that habit, he will merely be very good instead of dominant, which he could be based off of his physical tools and having AJ Brown, having Devonta Smith. Now you add Saquon Barkley, who is a little bit overrated, but still a good talent. I'd say his prove it rating is a 7 out of 10, and it would be even lower if his fucking defense showed up in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Pittsburgh Steelers, Russell Wilson. It really still is baffling how quickly Sierra's husband has fallen off since he left Seattle. I remember whenever people thought that when Seattle traded him to Denver, everyone said, well, this is the end of Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson's going to make everybody look like a dumbass. Well, Seattle won the trade. How about that? It shouldn't be a surprise considering the fact that people his height, they don't normally have successful NFL careers. So the fact that he's had the career that he's had really does speak to his work ethic and how talented he was. But it seems as though Father Time or something has caught up to him a lot sooner than people thought. The question is now, will he still make the Hall of Fame? I believe he should because of his run in Seattle. I don't think whatever happens after that doesn't change what happened in Seattle. A lot of people struggle with this concept because people are stupid. He's still capable of good performances, but I doubt he will get through the entire season this year because I think the Steelers are going to eventually want to see what they have in the much younger Justin Fields, who they traded for with Chicago. So Russ's prove it rating is a 5.5 out of 10. It would probably be a couple points lower if he didn't throw that stupid fucking interception to Malcolm Butler in Super Bowl 49. San Francisco 49ers, Brock Purdy. I think a lot of the discourse around Purdy is kind of weird. He's a guy, he wins a lot of games, puts up great stats. I don't understand what problem is here. Now, I understand that he's in a great situation. He's on a loaded offense. There's no question about that. He's a good quarterback in a good situation. And that's why the 49ers are so fucking good. People talk about how Tua Tagovailoa is holding the Dolphins back from being an elite team. Well, I don't think Brock Purdy is holding the 49ers back from being an elite team. In fact, if anything, I think Brock Purdy is actually the biggest reason why the 49ers aren't an afterthought after they had the historically terrible trade for Trey Lance in 2021, where they like literally one of the worst trades in the history of sports, and they got bailed out by finding Brock Purdy Mr. Irrelevant. So he saved the 49ers from their consequences of the Trey Lance trade. And even in the Super Bowl, which some people criticize him for, he led 3 go-ahead drives in the fourth quarter and overtime of the Super Bowl. Now, some people say, well, he should have gotten a touchdown, but still, 3 times gave the 49ers defense a chance to close the game and seal the championship, and they couldn't get it done. So in my opinion, he's legit. This is not a Jimmy Garoppolo situation. His prove it rating, though, still at an 8 out of 10, but I think he's legitimately good. Seattle Seahawks, Geno Smith. He's now put together 2 solid seasons, and the rebirth story from going from one of the biggest draft busts of all time to being good out of nowhere, it was nice at first, but now I think it's time and it's fair to start asking, what is Seattle's ceiling? Geno Smith, quarterback, after 2 straight mediocre seasons. He's not a draft bust anymore, but he's not an elite quarterback, although he does have an incredible highlight reel with a bunch of wow throws. But as I alluded to earlier, I think if Seattle has another 8 or 9 win season, which is where they've been floating around the last 2 years with Geno at quarterback, that they could look for a replacement in the draft, or at the very least they should. So I think Geno's prove it rating rather, is an 8.5 out of 10, even though he still is a good story. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield. His roller coaster of a career carries on. I feel like every year it's either up and down. It's either good or bad with Baker Mayfield. You never know what's going to be which. It seems like once people finally seem ready to count him out, pops back up with a good season like he had last year with the Buccaneers. However, it's the opposite way, where every season he seems to enter with expectations where people say, oh, okay, maybe you can play. He seems to falter and crap his pants. Well, guess what? He's entering this season with some expectations. So if I'm a Buccaneers fan, or if I'm a Buccaneers teammate, I'm kind of like, oh shit, maybe we should, watch out for that. Is he going to flop like he did in 2019 and 2021 and 2022? We don't know. Again, that's the beauty of Baker Mayfield. We don't know. It is worth noting, though, that he did win more regular season and playoff games than Tampa Bay's quarterback from 2022, whose name escapes me at the moment. Overall, I'd say Baker's prove it rating is an 8.5 out of 10. Tennessee Titans, Will Levis, a guy who was drafted really off of his physical tools and not his college production last season. He was a little bit better than expected as a rookie, although the bar was very low. The question with Levis is he the future of the franchise, or is he just another stopgap quarterback for a team that has never really seemed to have a franchise quarterback since Steve McNair? McNair, although Tannehill deserves a shout out. It's also fair to question, based off of some off-court antics, whether or not he enjoys premarital sex more than studying the playbook. First few games of this season, I believe, will tell everybody whether or not he's the real deal. If he struggles mightily early on, then that will signal, hey, this guy might not be the guy. We might have to tank this season and go pick quarterback high in the first round early in the draft. His prover rating is a 10 out of 10, just like his girlfriend. And finally, the Washington Commanders' Jaden Daniels. Physically, he has everything you could want in a quarterback. He has all the tools to succeed at the NFL level. He can make any throw you want. He's a great athlete. He played about 15 years in college. He was college teammates with Brandon Ayuk, by the way, which is, at Arizona State, which is why, so that tells you how long he was in college. Played about 15 years in college, so I don't expect a long learning curve for him in the NFL. Somewhat similar to Bo Nix. They both played like 30 years in college. I don't know if any of you saw the picture of his elbow when he was going back to pass. It was literally like a fucking machete. He can stab you to death with his elbow, which could come in handy against oncoming pass rushers this season. I want to believe in him, I really do, but things always seem to go wrong for Washington quarterbacks ever since their last Super Bowl win in 1991. And really, you can look no farther than RG3, who looked like a franchise quarterback and then was ruined after one season. Washington just seems like, they're just irrelevant. And I say this as an Eagles fan, an NFC East rival. They're just a team you don't really worry about. So despite them getting Daniels, I just feel like based on history, it probably won't end up going well. His prover rating, 10 out of 10.